This is the HobbyKing Skipper, which is sort of a Polaris clone. This is the, whatever you want to call it, the regular-sized version. They made I don't quite know what they called it, a Skipper Extra Large or something, a bigger one. And I think Polaris made them in two sizes anyway. There are bigger ones, is definitely what I was trying to say. Anyway, I think the general consensus is the smaller ones fly better. I've not flown the bigger one, so I'm not saying that from experience, but I think there are some issues maybe, with the tail flexing on the bigger ones. This is quite rigid, it's quite small. That rubber band's there for a very specific reason, because last time I flew this off water, I had a rather splashy landing. It wasn't a good landing on my part, it was a messy landing, and this is only held on by a magnet. It popped off, and the thing got full of water. Now, I was impressed, they've really waterproofed the electrics well. It got full of water, but it taxied in. I didn't even know it was full of water when it was out in the water. The motor was still running, the controls were still running, it taxied in okay. I got it in, there was like about 3/4 of an inch of water inside it. Poured it out, unplugged the battery as soon as I got it in, of course, but even with 3/4 of an inch of water inside, it continued to function perfectly okay. So they did a pretty good job. They put hot glue on the ends of the ESC. I didn't do this. This was done, when they made the plane. And I've flown it several times since, so it seems to have survived that wetting quite well. But I put the rubber band on now, so that there's less chance that if there's a bit of a jerk here and there, that you don't want the canopy popping off, because it wouldn't have got anywhere near so much water in it, if any, if the canopy hadn't popped off. To tell the truth, he flies a bit faster than I care for. I'm not a fan of fast flying planes, really, and he's a little hard to see as well. And we've still got a little bit of mist around as well, although the sun's getting pretty well up now, and there's not really all that much mist, but there is still a bit around.
Throttle cut off.
I think we're okay, though. I'm not going to take him too far away. He is a little hard to see. In fact, last time I was at the float fly, one of the guys lost one of these. He let it get a bit too far away from him, couldn't see the orientation properly, and it went down in the woods well on the other side of the water, and they went round and looked for it, but they couldn't find it. And it's easy to see how. You let him get a little bit far away from you, it's really hard to see his orientation. These delta things, I don't find they're the easiest things to see, and he's white and whatever. Anyway, we'll see. He's got plenty of power. The birds are kind of chittering and objecting now. I'm disturbing them. I don't know. He just seems to want to, drill on there, and he's a little hard to see. You can get him far away from you quickly if you're not careful. I brought him out again because basically if I'm going to fly, I always thought I might take him to the float fly. He fits in the car easily, and he is meant for flying off water, and there's a float fly this weekend. So I thought I might take him and try and fly him off water again. And he flies quite nicely off water. He'll suddenly take off water. I find him, as witness that story I was telling you, I find him a little hard to land all that well on water. He's coming in a bit fast, and you can splash a bit if you're not careful. You need to be lowering him onto the water nice and gently and not get his nose hooked and whatever, Not really, he flies fine, but he's not that easy to land nose up and whatever, so, I don't know, we'll see. Now, he didn't have the rubber band on I've flown him off the grass with the rubber band on, but he didn't actually, and really you don't need it on the grass particularly, I suppose really, but I just wanted to see. But, I haven't flown him off the water since that. Don't get a lot of opportunity to fly off water. I'm trying to see, I don't want to stall, see I did stall him. But I was trying to see how slowly I could fly him there, but I did stall him a bit there. Not that slowly is the answer. I mean, you know, he's not that, he's lightish.
Time remaining 6 minutes.
But he's not that incredibly light, and he doesn't have a massive amount of wing area, so you're not going to be able to drift him round particularly slowly. I mean, I'm trying to fly him. He can certainly go a lot faster than this, but I'm not a speed demon. I'm trying to see how slowly I can fly him consistently, basically. If I was sitting in an actual plane in the open sky, maybe I might like to open up the throttle and fly fast for a bit, but I'm not keen on flying RC planes particularly fast, because, you know, they just get out of sight so darn quickly. You're constantly having to fight to keep them in sight. So even there, he's getting to the point where I'm having trouble seeing him there, and that's not very far away. But he's getting to the point where I'm having trouble. I'm not really getting a really sharp sense of what his orientation is. He's a little high, a little far away. You don't want to let him get far away at all, so given that you don't want to let him get far away at all, you know, it doesn't help if he's flying really fast, because he gets far away quickly. Anyway, the plane you cannot criticize. I don't think you can criticize this plane very much. It's well made, it flies well, responds to the controls, has plenty of power. You know, if I'm a little uncomfortable with it, it's just because of the type of plane it is, not because of any flaws in it. But, you know, I don't want to. If I stall over those trees, I could have real problems. So I'm not flying very high either. Well, again, because height equals difficult, adds more distance and makes it harder to see. I'm going to bring it in for a landing now. So that's the idea. Maybe a bit high. Whoa, see what I mean? That was what I tend to bring it in too hot, you see. That was what I did with the water, I think, and made a splash, and that popped the, that was probably exactly what I did, and you don't want to do it. It just takes a bit of time to lift off as well. I might want to try and take him off and land him again, but I don't think I want to do it from there, because he might not lift off before the long grass there. He doesn't lift off super quickly. He doesn't lift off super quickly, so I think we'll tow him backwards a bit before I'm going to try and take him off and land him again, because that was not a good landing. He was too hot and he just bounced hopelessly. That's exactly pretty much the same thing I did off the water. And the canopy popped off when I did that first bounce, and then he came back on the water and got all water inside him. Okay. Let's, once more with feeling, let's see. But, you know, I'm nervous about stalling him.
Time remaining 4 minutes.
Yeah. Well, Whoa. See what I mean? He really needs a run. He really needs a bit of a run to get up speed before he takes off. That's why I didn't want to take him off near the long grass there, because he seems to need a fair amount of speed. He needs a fair amount of speed before he'll take off. So, you know, I mean, I just don't know how to land him slowly. See, well, I didn't bounce him as much then because I was running him along, but I don't know. I didn't bounce him so much because I tried to run him along the ground, but he still ran a long way. And I mean, I think, you know, I don't know whether you can...
Throttle cut on.
Also, with the propeller being at the back, I mean, the throttle cut, you mean... Well, you still want to put throttle cut on, but, you know, it's easy to handle without putting your hand anywhere near the propeller. Not a very big propeller, for sure, but it delivers plenty of power the way it's working. But the thing is, as I say, it seems like he needs quite a bit of speed to be flying, basically. So he takes a long run to take off, and, well, kind of a long run to land as well. You have to bring him in with a fair amount of speed, I think. I don't think you could bring him in much slower. I mean, I was just trying to more or less glide him in there, but I don't think you could bring him in an awful lot slower than that. Maybe you could, I don't know. I don't think you could, though. And if you're bringing him in at that speed, you know, and it kind of makes sense in terms of taking him off, you've got to get him up to that speed. And if that's his flying speed, the problem is he is going to move you've got to be careful to lower him very gently onto the water, and he's going to move quite a bit across the water after he lands before he stops moving. I mean, he'd actually, of course, he'd move further across water than he did across the grass there. So you want to be landing him where you've got a fair amount of water. You don't want to be landing him where there's whatever, a dock or somebody else is playing or whatever the heck in front, a little bit in front of you, because he's going to run a good way after he lands on the water. He's not going to land on the water and stop in a few feet. He's going to come in at speed and run quite a way across the water, probably, if you land him properly and gently. If you splash him down, maybe not so much. Anyway, I don't know. Don't know whether that tells me a lot new or not. Flies fine, it really doesn't have any major flaws, but he just needs a reasonable amount of flying speed, which means he needs some water space to take off and land in. I think I probably will. I mean, heck, he's meant for flying off water. I probably will take him to the float fly, and he doesn't take a lot of room in the car. I can fit him in with other planes, and you can sort of fit him around them because he's fairly small and doesn't have any undercarriage and whatever. So I think I probably will take him to the float fly, and we'll see. We just hope it works and we get a good flight off water with him. We'll see. So we only did 4.5 minutes of flight there. I don't know, it felt like more, but according to the time I had 3:30 left, and just under 3:30, but only a hair under 3:30, and we started at 8. So we only did apparently 4.5 minutes of flight. Oh, you can't see what this is because I've got Velcro on both sides, but it's a slightly older, zippy 220 milliamp hour 3 cell, and 11.9. Well, yes. I mean, it's only 4.5 minutes of flight. I've got the timer set to 8. I don't know whether you'd actually want to fly the 8, but you could certainly fly more than that. Yeah, I mean, the 8 may be a little bit on the optimistic side. In fact, maybe I'll reduce it. Just under 4 after 3.5, after 4.5 minutes of halfway. Well, I mean, he probably wouldn't actually cut out. You could probably fly him to the 8, but you probably don't want to be flying him all the way to 8.